What was the biggest lizard known to science? What prehistoric fish did frighten even sharks? What the rhinoceros from the past were fearful of? I'll tell you about this. In this episode, you'll learn about the most dreadful prehistoric monsters. Megalania. This is the name of our first guest, and at the same time, the largest land lizard known to science. The Megalania belongs to the family Varanidae. One of its representatives you can see nowadays. Yes, we're talking about the Komodo dragon. Take it from me, our modern counterpart, no matter how harsh and dangerous it may be, is no match for this prehistoric monster. Judging by the location of the remains that are actively being excavated, the Megalania lived in the northern and western parts of Australia. To say that it was large is to say nothing. A distant relative of the Komodo dragon, according to various data, could grow from 15 to 30 feet in length and weigh 660 or 4,800 pounds. I think that now you'll definitely not doubt that the Megalania was one of the most dangerous inhabitants of Australia that was feared by almost all other animals. Well, let's get to the most important part and try to understand how this reptile grew to such a colossal size. Fortunately, there is an explanation. For almost its entire life, this monster of antiquity remained young. Because of this, the Megalania was able to pump itself full of growth hormones for longer than others. With such data, our guest could have hunted in the style of a carefree killer. It went straight ahead, and it mowed down everyone who caught its eye. However, something back then, in ancient times, made it change its hunting strategy. Megalania, like its modern counterpart, became an ambush predator. The reptile hid in the bushes and waited for the right moment, and it deprived the enemy of life in just a precise jerk. And when it was lazy to hunt someone large, it quietly amused itself while pressing smaller predators. The lizard approached them, and in the capacity of the strongest, it appropriated its prey. Try to oppose this monster. In addition, there's an opinion that the Megalania could be poisonous, like modern dragons. But since modern Komodo dragons kill their prey solely by inflicting mechanical damage, this theory is considered insufficiently valid. Most likely, if there was venom, it had other functions such as digestion. And while we're on the subject of crazy theories, here's another one. Residents of Australia in the late 1900s began to report to the authorities and just different law enforcement agencies about hiding Megalania in their neighborhoods. They did this in complete earnest. Of course, according to scientists, the possibility of such a scenario is minimal, but the very fact that an extinct creature, purely in theory, may not be extinct scares me. What about you? Acrocanthosaurus. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is a genus of giant predatory dinosaurs that lived about 109 to 125 million years ago. Translated from ancient Greek, the name of this dinosaur means the lizard with high spikes, and this is one of those cases where scientists have described the creature clearly and factually. From the dorsal vertebrae of Acrocanthosaurus, spines actually grew, reaching 14 inches in length. This monster terrified literally all the wildlife around it. It was unrivaled in terms of toughness and danger at that time. It's even scary to imagine in what desperate situation all the other creatures were. They looked around and they saw a predatory giant reaching about 36 feet in length and weighing over 6 tons. It also had an incredible mouth with equally incredible fangs. Its harsh, bony brow ridges also added some formidability to the common picture of it. The mutant's back resembled a hump that visually made it even more brutal and larger. A powerful tail gave this creature of nature a finished look. Against the background of such an immodest body, its legs seemed short but powerful. The front paws were a mess, but it was better than nothing. As a result, this lizard was not afraid of almost anyone except its older brethren. It's said that these animals could fight each other almost at the first opportunity. They both sparred and defended their native territories, but that didn't stop them from hunting together. According to the experts, the Acrocanthosaurus often attacked as a gang. Literally everyone was caught in the act. During the hunt, these creatures not only tore flesh with their teeth, but they may have used their short arms. Some of the gang would cling to their victims, the latter would hold them, and their fellows sent them to glory. Still, the bite power of this creature wasn't as incredible as that of many other creatures, so you had to rely on the claw damage and the strength of the group. Dinosaurs. These creatures, unlike the previous two, had nothing to do with battles on land. Instead, they favored underwater battles. Incidentally, they excelled quite well at them. The Dinosaurs are also known as saltwater crocodiles. This is one of the few representatives of their family that were adapted to hunting almost alone large prey. Their size was quite outstanding, from 13 feet to 16 feet in length, but I personally cannot call them frightening. Their muzzle was short, their teeth were huge, and at the same time, there were only a few of them in number. The limbs had been transformed into flippers by evolution. It may seem that the dinosaurs were not capable of anything in this life except for amusing other marine inhabitants and hoping for a miracle, but it wasn't. In their way of life, they remotely resembled killer whales. They were active aquatic predators that could handle anyone. They didn't care about the size of their enemies. They probably preyed mainly on ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and large fish like sharks. They tore off pieces of meat from a large prey, as well as modern crocodiles. The Dinosaurs had well-developed jaw muscles. The structure of the skull and the vertebrae allowed them to make the so-called deadly rotation. They were helped by a special device of teeth that's more honed on holding and biting bones than cutting flesh. At this point, many of you will wonder, but how is it that the main hunter of the seas and oceans became extinct? He was so successful and so good at everything. No, he wasn't. Not everything. The Dinosaurs had obvious breeding problems. Like most reptiles, they laid eggs. But how do you do that if you spend your whole life underwater? Going ashore is not an option. The saltwater crocodile has learned to crawl on land. Laying eggs in the open ocean is also a bad idea. The cubs will drown. Curiously, scientists have not yet come to a consensus on this topic. This is where the main problem of their extinction derives from. The Dinosaurs simply did not determine how they would better reproduce. They gave a free rein to it, and they gradually produced their population in conditions of complete dominance. It's a natural paradox. Don't think that this is some kind of nonsense. There are many paradoxes in life. Here, by the way, is another one of them. How could the sweetest kitten be left all alone on the street? Fortunately, the abandoned cat was picked up by my kind subscriber, sheltered, and immediately got rid of all the problems. He fed, watered, checked for diseases. He did everything except for the last, no less important moment, making up a name. Let's give him a hand, shall we? It's a girl, if anything. Write in the comments what she can be called. Okay, well, we've departed from the subject and now we're back to the horrible ancient monsters. Next up, we have another deep-sea dweller named Xiphanticus. It's a giant ray-finned fish from an extinct group that existed 70 to 100 million years ago. Its body is said to have been 20 feet long or even more. The Xiphanticus had insanely strong jaws, studded with huge fang-like teeth. The lower jaw stood out in particular. That's why our guest was given the unspoken name bulldog fish. As in the previous story, we don't know anything about the reproduction of this creature. People know that Xiphanticus swam far from the coast, and it devoured everything it saw. And I'm not exaggerating at all. The predator could thrust almost anything into its sharpest fangs, from small fish to quite large sharks. Yes, you can't call it the ultimate hunter, that would be wrong. The thing is that the skeleton of the Xiphanticus was often found in the stomach contents of other creatures. However, it was quite a decent middleweight who could stand up for itself. It's likely that this fish would have continued to terrify sea creatures if it hadn't been for one thing: the drying up of his native sea. Alas, no matter how strong a predator you are, you can't fight climate change. Near-horned beast. Now we're going to look at the ancestor of the rhinoceros that existed about 20 to 30 million years ago. It's said that the near-horned beast could grow to almost 16.5 feet at the withers and weigh about 25 tons. For your understanding, the modern African elephant, that is the largest land animal, weighs only about 6 or 8 tons, although this is an incredible value. It's as if the ancient giant had not been from our planet. Its way of life, like all other giants, was extremely quiet. It walked, it wandered, it looked wherever it could see, and it ate leaves. Judging by the structure of the skull of a near-horned beast, its tongue was quite long and stiff, like that of giraffes. With its help, the animals devoured all the tops of the local trees. All in all, that's about all that's known about them. It remains to tell you about their principle of life. Our guests existed both in groups and not. Female herds were led by an old female. The males, on the other hand, survived on their own. It was believed that they were too dangerous for the young. They could snap at them without reason, and they pushed them or ate them. That's the kind of trouble loving mothers don't want. By the way, you're probably looking at the video with these creatures and wondering why somewhere they're shown in one way and somewhere in another. There's nothing strange in this. Scientists have not yet decided on their appearance. In total, there are 3 main options. Either it was a huge horse or a huge rhinoceros without a horn, or just a rather massive and at the same time strange giraffe. Whatever the case, this miracle became extinct due to climate change. At least, that's what was thought until recently. In fact, it turned out that it wasn't quite so simple. As the near-horned beast disappeared, elephants arrived in their territory. They were smaller, they consumed less vegetation, and they had a multifunctional trunk-like arm. In fact, they proved to be more intelligent and clever animals. In a short period of time, elephants probably simply displaced their larger neighbors. Have you ever wondered what life was like for different large creatures? I told you about the near-horned beast, and you could add Tyrannosaurus or something else. We're too smart and too small, and we think that it's great to be big. In this case, you become the ruler of everything around you. You're not afraid of anyone and nothing, and therefore you can tamper with flora and fauna. Sounds kind of logical, right? But is it really so? Spoiler, it's nothing like that. Modern scientists armed themselves with electron microscopes, along with other devices, and they began to study the skeletons with special interest. It turned out that the ancient giants had a lot of diseases. They had arthritis, cavities, and osteochondrosis. Do you think that that's the worst of it? Well, cancer was also among the diseases. American scientists from the state of Ohio scanned 10,000 bones of extinct herbivorous creatures, and they determined that about 30% of their total number were characterized by tumors. Now, it's difficult to say how many of them were malignant. However, modern animals have hundreds of times less questionable growths. Dinosaurs also suffered from infectious diseases. It's much more difficult to detect them. At the same time, harmful bacteria destroy not only organs but also bones, thus giving away their presence. So scientists found out that dinosaurs were often sick with tuberculosis, pneumonia, and even inflammation of air sacs. Who knows what other ailments will be revealed after the next study of skeletons of extinct giants. But one thing I now know for sure, being the biggest and most dangerous in the forest does not mean you get to live to a long and happy life. Nevertheless, there were huge inhabitants in antiquity, and we cannot take them away. One of them, the Pachycephalosaurus, scientists come up with names for them. Let's just call it the Ram of Antiquity. Why is that? Because this inhabitant of the States and Canada loved to fight other creatures. At some convenient opportunity, it rammed its head into that of its neighbor. And it's not to say it was empty. It's quite normal behavior given the structure of the head. There's a reason Mother Nature gave it such a thick bone. According to some sources, the thickness of the skull could reach up to 10 inches. In any case, no matter how large the skull might have been, it's not very comfortable to beat with it on a regular basis. To correct this misunderstanding, our guest with such a difficult name acquired a gorgeous cushioning. Bone cushion of thick skull, together with short neck and strong spine, formed an ideal mechanism for ramming anyone and anything. However, their heads were adapted so poorly to stuffing their stomachs with food. Unlike other dinosaurs, the teeth of our hero were small and thin, such that they couldn't chew grass. Therefore, rams from antiquity were real gourmets. They fed only on young foliage, berries, and fruits. although this information has recently been questioned. Some studies denote the opposite. This beast was an omnivore, and its diet could change from season to season, just like that of bears. Shonosaurus. That's the name of the next guest of our episode. It lived very, very long ago, more than 210 million years ago. The Shonosaurus is believed to have been the largest marine reptile, but their diet is still shrouded in mystery. However, it seems to me that the Shonosaurus were clearly not starving. They could be over 50 feet long and weigh 30 or even 40 tons. With such dimensions, the Shonosaurus outstripped not only the aquatic lizards but also many of the titans of the marine world. The same megalodon would seem like a sprat compared to our hero. The only thing is that it would be wrong to compare the megalodon with the Shonosaurus in a fair fight. First of all, they lived in very different times, but come on, let's drop this point. The most important thing here is that our guest didn't hunt big prey. It was much more pleasant and easier for it to go deep and suck up squid. That's what the basic theory about its diet sounds like. There are, of course, more bloody versions, but there's still almost nothing to back them up. Now I'll tell you about the biggest and most dangerous turtle in the world and more. Leatherback sea turtle. Looking at pictures and videos of the leatherback sea turtle where it's alone in the frame, you might think that it's just a rather large reptile and nothing more. But if you look at the footage, which also shows people, it becomes clear how huge it is. These are the largest modern turtles, and their size is staggering. Leatherback sea turtles can reach 8.2 feet in length and weigh up to 1,320 pounds. But this is far from the limit. The largest measured individual had a total body length of 8.5 feet, a front flipper span of 8.2 feet, and a weight of 2,019 pounds. Almost a ton for one turtle. This is something incredible. In order to keep fit and stay in shape, the turtle has to eat a lot. It eats jellyfish, ctenophores, crustaceans, mollusks, and young fish. By the way, it's not only the enormous appetite and the gigantic size that distinguish the leatherback sea turtle from other turtles, but also its body structure. In the leatherback turtle family, the shell is not connected to the skeleton and consists of some bony plates connected to each other, hence the name of the reptile, which, by the way, can be found in all tropical seas. Archelon. However, you can hardly find this turtle in the water anymore, but you can come across it in some museums. You got it right, Archelon is an extinct turtle. Archelon would beat the pants off even the leatherback sea turtle because this is the largest sea turtle of all time. It was up to 15 feet long and weighed more than 4,850 pounds. And the flipper span was 16.5 feet. By the way, scientists believe that Archelon is a very old ancestor of leatherback sea turtles. These huge creatures lived along with dinosaurs. They appeared on the planet about 100 million years ago and disappeared along with the notorious lizards 66 million years ago. The diet of Archelon resembles that of modern leatherback sea turtles, jellyfish, crustaceans, mollusks, and so on. I wonder how long these creatures lived. How about 100 years? Or 150? If so, that's hefty, but I don't think Archelon turtles have lived longer than Jonathan. This is one of the largest modern tortoises, but more importantly, the oldest tortoise on the planet. It's hard to believe, but Jonathan was born in 1832. That means this old guy's almost 200 years old. He belongs to the Aldabra giant tortoise species, which is widespread on the island of Aldabra in the Seychelles. Jonathan himself does not live in his native Seychelles. He was moved to St. Helena in the Atlantic Ocean, where he's now looked after by the island government itself. The old man's feeling well and doesn't seem to be going to die at all. It's amazing how many things happen in his lifetime, from the advent of movies, airplanes, telephones, and the internet, to a bunch of different social and political events. Speaking of politics, Jonathan has outlived 28 governors on St. Helena. Probably he'll outlive at least a couple more. I think that's enough about turtles for today. But besides them, there are a bunch of other huge creatures that prefer water. Keep watching to see the biggest shark. A jellyfish bigger than a human, a 164-foot organism, and a frog that won't fit in the palm of your hand. Shark. Few people would want to encounter a shark underwater. After all, most of them are extremely dangerous. But if you encounter a whale shark, you don't have to worry. It's probably the kindest shark in the world, and also the biggest one. The whale shark is not nicknamed by chance because its size matches the whales themselves. It can grow up to 66 feet in length and weighs about 20 tons. But of course, there are larger individuals. The whale shark does not hunt large marine life, and especially people. Its diet is similar to that of whales. This giant slowly swims at a speed of 3 miles per hour and eats plankton and small crustaceans, sucking them together with seawater. The whale shark is a real do-gooder. It's always happy to swim with divers and allows them to take pictures and film itself as much as divers want. Interestingly, for all its kindness, the shark has so many teeth that even the great white shark would be horrified. In the mouth of the giant, there are about 300,000 teeth. But they're very small, no more than 0.1 inches long each. And they're designed not to bite, but to not let the food out. Jellyfish. Many jellyfish are very dangerous. Take, for example, the box jellyfish, which can kill several dozen people in a matter of minutes. But this giant is not dangerous to humans. All the better because we can get some amazing close-up footage. This is the lion's mane jellyfish, the largest jellyfish in the world. In the ocean, you can find individuals which bell reaches 6.5 feet in diameter. These record-breaking giants have tentacles capable of stretching out over several tens of meters. The largest measured jellyfish tentacle reached a length of 120 feet, and a diameter of the bell was 7.5 feet. Tentacles as long as a 10-story building. I can't believe it's possible. But this, by the way, is not the limit. There's a creature in the world with even longer tentacles, but we'll talk about it later. Frog. The average frog is not big at all. Walking somewhere near a river or marsh, you might not even notice it unless it starts singing. But it's impossible not to notice the Goliath frog. It's a real Goliath. It's almost unreal to put such an amphibian on your hand, unless, of course, you're not giant. After all, the Goliath frog can reach almost 3.2 feet in length, about 10 inches wide, and weigh up to 13 pounds. That's about the size of a domestic cat if it were flattened. The largest frogs in the world live in Africa, in southwest Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. There, they can be found in the waterfalls of fast and full-flowing tropical rivers. This, by the way, is a very important point. Unlike most of its dirty congeners, the Goliath frog is quite squeamish. It likes to live in crystal-clear water full of oxygen. Like many other frogs, Goliaths are fearful. They notice everything that moves around at a distance of about 130 feet. And if they feel threatened, they jump 10 feet into the water in one jump. Unfortunately, the species is on the verge of extinction. Locals hunt these giants with poisons, nets, and traps, wanting to profit from the amazing amphibian record breakers. Saltwater crocodile. All crocodiles love water, but the saltwater crocodile doesn't mind swimming in seawater. This is not only the largest of all crocodiles, but also the largest reptile in the world, as well as the largest land predator on the planet. These monsters easily grow more than 16 feet in length and weigh about a ton, although some can be over 20 feet long and weigh about 2 tons. In addition to their gigantic size, these crocodiles can boast excellent vision, incredible speed in the water, which exceeds 12 miles per hour, and furious strength. With its tail, the crocodile can knock down any animal, and with its bite, considered to be the most powerful in the world, it easily breaks bones as if they were chips. In addition, the saltwater crocodile has a very strong immunity and recovers quickly even after serious wounds. To me, it looks like a kind of final boss in some video game. Saltwater crocodile is one of the most dangerous animals, not only now but in history in general. An encounter with it in its territory will almost certainly result in death. Siphonophores. Let's return directly to the sea. I think everyone knows that the largest animal in the world is the blue whale. It's very heavy and very long. It can be 108 feet long. It would seem unreal to beat such a result, but it's not so. I've already shown you the lion's mane jellyfish with its 120-foot tentacles, and I promise to show you something much cooler. This is the siphonophore. In fact, it's not only a single creature, but an entire colony combined into a single whole. The parts of a siphonophore are called zooids. Together, they can reach an incredible length. Some siphonophores can stretch 148 to 164 feet. Siphonophores are very resilient creatures. Even if you cut off half of the zooids, the colony will continue to live. Just one zooid is enough for the siphonophore to exist. I must say, these creatures are not harmless. They're real monsters among them, and the most famous of them is the Portuguese man-o'-war. This creature is not affectionate at all. In fact, it's something like an extremely dangerous jellyfish, which tentacles reach a monstrous size. The Portuguese man-o'-war's tentacles carry a huge number of stinging cells, the venom of which is dangerous to humans. Contact with the large surface of the tentacles can be fatal. And most eerie of all, the Portuguese man-o'-war can finish off its prey while being dozens of meters away from it. So we've met the giant and incredibly large representatives of the animal world, and what giants inhabited our planet in ancient times? You'll see it further in the episode. Carbonemys. We'll start with a creature that in its time clearly had ambitions to become the top, the most fearsome and dangerous predator on the planet. Some of you now imagine a giant dinosaur. Others have taken a slightly different path and imagined a dangerous bird. But who would have thought Carbonemys would be a turtle? Of course, it was different from the turtles that live on the Earth today. It had a shell which was about 6.5 feet in diameter, weighed about 660 pounds, and was extremely strong. The main feature and strength of the turtle is its beak, capable of biting even the thick bones of enemies in half. Nevertheless, no matter how high ambitions it had, it couldn't run like some tiger and grab everyone left and right, of course. The turtle opted for an ambush type of hunting, hiding in the bushes waiting for its prey. And as soon as it was within reach, Carbonemys made a sharp jerk followed by just one bite. And that was it. The prey was done. Almost anyone could fall into its trap, by the way. Mammals, fish, and even crocodiles couldn't resist the enormous power of the turtle. Only Titanoboa, the largest snake in the history of the planet, was not afraid of these armored killers. Truth be told, however, Carbonemys was not much afraid of the snake either. No matter how you look at it, it was extremely difficult even for Titanoboa to penetrate its shell. Well, you can write in the comments which one of them was in a better position, in your opinion. Diatrema. Our next prehistoric guest was a bird. Only not an ordinary bird, but a ground-dwelling, flightless one. If in the past such giants were the norm, then today just one such bird could stir the pot. The fact is that its beak alone was over 18 inches long. It itself was 6.5 feet tall, and it also boasted a powerful body. However, at the same time, the body was quite short. I'm talking about underdeveloped wings. However, as is usually the case, if nature limits you somewhere, it makes up for it with something else. That's exactly the scenario that happened to our feathered friend. It was born with very strong legs, each with 4 toes. This beautiful bird weighed about 220 pounds, and its long beak had many small but razor-sharp teeth. So, as I've already said, due to the problems with its wings, Diatrema couldn't fly. Leading an exclusively terrestrial lifestyle, it was quite a ferocious raptor, and if necessary, for example, during a chase it could develop a high speed. Scientists believe that it was comparable to the speed of an ostrich, that is about 37 to 43 miles per hour in case of danger. Despite its predatory temperament and nature, Diatrema could feed not only on small prehistoric animals, but also on plant food. It's safe to say that with its powerful beak, it could crack any nut, fruit, or root. What's more, researchers believe that the power of the 18-inch beak of this bird is akin to that of a guillotine. Everything else it came across was instantly crumbled and broken. It's even frightening to imagine what happened to the animals that fell into the trap of this overgrown bird. Their fate was probably sealed in a single blow to the head. It would be strange if the main danger among birds was posed only by terrestrial creatures. So this time I'm going to tell you about a flying feathered individual called Argentavis. And it's not just some faintly flying feathered creature. This majestic creature is considered to be one of the largest birds in history. This bird lived in what is now Argentina, as evidenced by its name, which is translated as the majestic Argentine bird. As for its size, its height was more than 47 inches, its wingspan was about 23 feet, and its weight exceeded 150 pounds. But this is not all that can be said about this bird. Its method of hunting is also definitely worth mentioning. Argentavis would soar high in the sky and stalk its potential prey. When it spotted a target, it would literally crash down on it from the sky and turn the prey into a flapjack. Just imagine how other creatures felt when a 150-pound giant fell on them from a height of dozens of meters. Well, if the prey for some reason still showed signs of life, this raptor dealt with it skillfully and quickly. It dealt with the prey with surgical precision with its sharp beak. Nevertheless, it's impossible not to note the disadvantages of this hunter. It did have them. For example, because of its large size, it wasn't easy for Argentavis to take off, and it always needed a suitable terrain, some tree or a slope. Also, he could not boast of phenomenal speed. It accelerated to more than the usual 37 to 43 miles per hour for flying birds. T-Rex. Tyrannosaurus means tyrant and lizard in Greek. These creatures inhabited the territories of what is now Canada and the United States, and were the only ones in their species belonging to the reptile hipped clade. Today, the only way to analyze the real force and power of the extinct creatures is to examine and study their remains. And here, by the way, is one of the T-Rex skeletons. The largest skeleton, to be exact. It was found near the Canadian Saskatchewan province and allowed scientists to conclude that Tyrannosaurus weighed more than 8 tons and was about 43 feet long. These figures are constantly changing to this day, but what remains constant is the information about the jaws of T-Rex. One of the teeth of this creature, which people managed to find, exceeded 12 inches in length. This, by the way, is the largest of all found teeth of carnivorous dinosaurs. Scientists believe that T-Rex had dozens of them in its mouth. The most heated debate about this creature has always been, and remains, a dispute about hunting. Some scientists believe that Tyrannosaurus was an active top predator which hunted other large dinosaurs, such as ceratopsians and sauropods. Others, in turn, argue that it fed mainly on carrion. But now most paleontologists believe that Tyrannosaurus could both hunt and feed on dead creatures. In any case, it seems to me that the latter version is the most plausible. This anomalous giant didn't care who or how to devour, especially when you consider the strength of the Tyrannosaurus's grip. Scientists say the bite of this creature would have been enough to bite through a car. You're looking at these ancient monsters right now and thinking, it's a good thing there's no one as big and dangerous these days. But as much as I hate to break it to you, I have to tell you that dangerous doesn't mean big. I'll now show you a real tyrant of our time that is not to be messed with. Inland taipan. The cold stare of this monster gives chills even in hot deserts, and one bite will kill 100 people at once. And no, this is not a figure of speech, but a gruesome fact. Like most dangerous creatures, this animal has made its home in Australia. No matter how the locals get used to these anomalous creatures, the inland taipan stands out among them. First of all, the animal is quite large. Yes, it's not a huge python or boa constrictor, but calling a 6.5 to 8 foot snake small is wrong. And its camouflage coloring, which perfectly blends with the desert, makes it a perfect hunter at all. Although no, another factor makes an ideal hunter of it. Its venom. It's the most dangerous venom in the world. If you can't imagine how much damage the toxin can do, just listen. One dose of it would be enough to kill 250,000 mice. If the example of babies with tails is still not clear to you, then the same dose would be enough for about 100 healthy humans. The heart of hypothetical test subjects will stop beating forever in just 30 minutes after encountering this animal. Fortunately, this creature doesn't pounce on each person in sight and is content to eat mice, rats, jerboas, and other small creatures in its native desert. I don't know about you, but to me, this is a real dangerous snake. It's 100 times more dangerous than Titanoboa because it's so hard to find. Besides, there's not much difference whether the prey will be eaten because of the predator's large size or because of the predator's incredible venom. The one I feel not indifferent about is the cat in the following video. After watching it several times, I can't believe how lucky this cute creature is. Did you see that? One more second and the furball could have said goodbye to its life. Still, it's okay. However, the owner and author of the video will take action and close the hole in the fence. The battle of two snakes. If the situation in the last video is in some sense unequal, this story is a little different. Somewhere in the wild, the author of the following video filmed a battle between two snakes. There was a California mountain king snake in the left corner of the ring and a rattlesnake in the right corner of the ring. To be honest, I was expecting a much longer and more intense battle, but apparently the king snake has somewhere to be in a hurry. It crawled up to its opponent and suddenly attacked it. It injected a dose of toxin and performed its trademark choking hold, which was impossible to resist. You can see what happened next. It gradually swallowed the rattlesnake. The whole process took no more than a few minutes. That's all, guys. Which creature did you find most frightening? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.